Quelques-unes des contes, tu vas me les conter en français, puis là tu vas dire quoi ça veut dire en anglais.
Okay.
Parce que pour tout le monde.
Yeah.
Ms. Boudreaux, how did you learn all the stories that you tell?
Well, when I was a young child, we lived in the country, and in those days we didn't have any TV or radios, and seldom that we would go to shows and things like that. And fathers and mothers, when we went to visit one place, would try to entertain us the best way they could. They told us all kind of stories and jokes and things like that, and then they would serve us some refreshment, and some of us has remembered those stories from long ago. And the old folks had also learned the stories from the old folks and all of that also. So,
but some people remember stories and some people don't, though.
Right.
What do you think makes that?
Well, first of all, if you're interested in it, the more you practice it, the more you will accumulate, and the easier it is for you to tell your stories, because you get to enjoy telling them.
When I first came in January 1974, it's quite some years ago now.
Right.
You told me 4 stories. And then I came a year later, in January of 75, and you told me 6 more stories. And then you called me up that night and told me to come back because you had forgotten to tell me the best one. And I came back the next day, you told me 8 stories. What was
the best one that I had forgotten? Do you remember?
That Tipouset one.
Oh, you know? Tipouset.
What was going on? How come you remembered more stories as it went along?
Well, I started thinking about the stories that I had heard, and it began to interest me again in those old stories, and so I would think about it. Sometimes I'd wake up at night and I'd think about all those times we had when we were small and all of that.
You're trying to humor that crazy college kid who wanted to hear all that old stuff. But since then, you've told me, I bet, nearly 40 or 50 stories.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. We must be around there.
Why don't you tell us one of your favorite ones? I know you like them all.
How about Rover, the son that went to college, and il y avait un papa et une maman qui avaient juste un fils.
There was a mother and father had just one son, and they loved their son very much.
Toujours le fils avait fini son école.
And the son had finished his school, public school, and he was going to college.
Et le papa et la maman s'ennuyaient beaucoup de leur enfant.
And the father and mother missed him very much.
Tous les temps en temps, il venait
So every once in a while, he came to visit his parents.
Un jour, il dit à son papa,
and one day he said to his father, seems like you like Rover a lot more than when I left to go to school.
And he
said, yeah, Rover is good company for me. But it's too bad he can't talk to me. I talk to him and he can't talk back to me. So the son said, well, Daddy, you know where I go to school, they teach dogs how to talk. Oh, he says, no kidding. Oh, he says, yeah, Daddy, but it costs a lot of money to do that. You have to pay for the food, you have to pay for the lodging. You have to pay for somebody to take care of the dog. He said, well, you know, I'm not worried about money. He said, take him with you, and if you think they can teach him how to talk, take him. So he left and he brought the dog with him. Every once in a while he would write, Dear Mother and Father, I'm doing fine, and Rover is doing fine too, and he's learning how to speak. He said, Daddy, the other day. Oh, he said, that's great. But you know, it's going to take more money. So the father wrote a big check and sent it to his son to finish Rover's education.
toujours, il écrit, il dit, Rover parle un peu plus. Il a dit,
so he wrote back and said, Rover's
l'heure arrivait pour lui revenir pour les vacances.
Rover's talking a little more and everything's going fine. So the time came for them to come back for vacation.
Papa, il dit, moi et Rover revient à la maison pour les vacances.
So the son wrote a letter and said, Rover and I are coming home.
Place, à telle heure, et il dit, on va être là.
Meet us at a special place and we'll be there. So everybody was very excited that the son and Rover were coming back.
Il manquait le fils, il avait remplacé moyen le fils avec le chien, mais c'est que le chien n'était plus là non plus. Fait quand il arrivait,
so when the son came back,
le garçon descendu, il voyait pas le
the
chien.
son got down by himself and the old man didn't see the dog. They said hello.
Où Rover?
Well, he said, where's Rover?
Mais il dit, papa,
well, he said,
Rover
Daddy,
t'a prémené trop smart.
He said, you know, Rover was getting pretty smart. He said, I asked him what he was going to say to Daddy.
Quand tu vas arriver. Mais
and when he got back and he said, I said,
dire à papa, bonjour, comment ça va?
I'll tell him hello, how's it going?
Et il dit, quoi tu vas dire à maman?
And he said, what are you going to tell to Mama?
Il dit à maman, il dit, je vais dire,
to Mama, I'm going to tell her what a good time Daddy has with that widow in the neighborhood.
Mais il dit, quoi t'as fait?
Oh, well, he said, what did you do? Well, he said, I got rid of Rover. I didn't want him to break up your marriage. Y'all having such a good marriage. I didn't want him to ruin anything. Oh, he said, you did a good thing, my son. That's a good story. I remember when you told me that one a few years ago. A lot of your stories have animals in them. Like that first one you told me about Bouquet and Lapin.
Yeah.
And the ones about the fox.
Yeah.
And all that.
And then the fishing bear. The bear that was fishing in the ice.
You didn't tell me that one.
I didn't.
I knew this was going to happen. Every time I come...
That'll be the third one that I'll tell you today that you hadn't heard.
Every time I come, she tells me some stories that I haven't heard. Okay. What's your...
Yeah. To be the bear that's fishing.
He was 1 second to start.
Tu juste dis ça comme tu viens de faire, c'était bon. Faut que tu peux commencer en français.
L'ours voyait
bear
de
saw
ses amis après pêcher.
Some of his friends fishing, and he wasn't catching anything, and everybody else was catching fish. He said, why in the world are you catching and not me? So his friend said, well, you got to dig a hole, cut a hole in the ice, and turn yourself around and put your tail in the water. And when the fish bites on your tail, you stand up and pull it out. Then you'll catch fish. So he cut a hole in the ice, and he put his tail in the water. And he waited and waited, sitting down. He wasn't catching anything. He said, well, I'm getting kind of cold. So he said, how in the world am I going to do? I'm getting cold here. I got to get up. Right at the time, a fish bit his tail, and he got up, scared, and he caught a fish for supper. Patience, and you gain your pride. Who told you most of the stories that you know now?
My mother did it, and
Madame Clotilde.
Madame Clotilde Richard. Et elle est morte il y a 5 ans, à l'âge de 89 ans et 10 mois et 1 jour.
She told you some stories of some fairy tales, some long involved fairy tale stories. Like the one that you told me, Tipoussette, you had learned from her.
Yes,
I guess.
That's right. I learned many of them from her. And about the old maid that wanted to find a husband, and she went and prayed around by the oak tree. And about
why don't you tell that? You can tell that one in English.
Okay. There was an old maid, and she was desperate to get married. She really wanted to get married. And so she went to her grandmother and told her grandmother. She says, Grandma, she says, I want to get married so bad. She says, but nobody looks at me. I have no boyfriend. She says, well, granddaughter, she says, go at the foot of an oak tree and kneel down and pray at the foot of the oak tree. And she said, don't give up. So she prayed for a few nights at the foot of the oak tree, but no luck. So in desperation, she went to her grandmother again. She says, Grandma, she says, I've been going to that oak tree and pray every night. And she said, no luck. Well, she says, you're not praying hard enough, daughter. She says, keep on going, but pray harder. So that night, she went by the oak tree and she knelt down close to it and she put her head against the oak tree on her hands like that. And she said, Dear God, please send me a man. Just then, there was an old owl in the tree, and the old owl said, woo, woo, woo. She says, oh my God, just so it's a man, send him to me.
Doesn't matter who it is.
It doesn't matter who it is, just so it's a man, send him to me.
That's a good one.